Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Certainly Allah's deen is Islam. 3. 19. What is Islam? Translation of Islam Kya Hai? What did Allah say? The Quranic perspective. Ghulam Ahmed Parwez 1964. Talui Islam Trust. Registered. 25B, Gulberg 2, Lahore. 5. Implementation and functioning of the law. We have seen in Chapter 1 that one concept of God is that which the human mind coined, and the other which Allah Himself provided through revelation. The God invented by the human mind belongs to that era when his consciousness was undeveloped and his intellect was in the embryonic era. In that era, the greatest authority in front of man was a king, ruler, or sultan, therefore he also put God into the same category as a king. He could not think of God as being anything other than this. He observed that kings are not bound by any rules or laws. Whatever they wish they command and everyone has to obey. No one can even ask them this much, as to what is the aim and purpose of this order. If anyone does even pick up the courage to ask them such a thing, and if they are in the mood to reply to him, then their answer will be no more than that, this is our wish, and we desire it like this. This is that royal attitude which has already been noted. Sometimes their state is such that, if someone greets them they may become annoyed with him, and sometimes their state is such that, if someone swears at them they may bestow a treasure on him. 5.1 God, an absolute dictator. It is obvious that when God is viewed in this form and together with this, there is such a belief that, in comparison to a king, God's powers are limitless, then such a God will be an absolute dictator and it will be considered an insult. And for such a God a cause for humiliation. To even imagine that he is constrained by any rule and procedure. It will be said, what kind of a God is that who is limited by some rule? Being tied down by rules is against the stature of godliness. He himself is an absolute sovereign and there is no other ruler above him, how can he be constrained by some law and procedure? His every command will be law and his every gesture an order. He can do whatever he wants and give whatever order he wishes. He can destroy and obliterate whoever he wishes and bestow gifts and riches on whoever he desires. The one who gains his pleasure, will reap all and the one he becomes angry with, will be left desolate. The natural consequence resulting from such a belief regarding God was also that man should remain constantly fearful of him. As he could never know when he might become angry and destroy and ruin him. The second consequence of such a belief was that, in order to seek the pleasure of God, just as various means and techniques are adopted to please kings, similar techniques required to be also invented and similar means to be pursued. The way in which to please kings is to recite praises in their honor, sing songs in their appreciation and flattery, and present gifts in their courts. If even these tricks do not work, then it was necessary to seek intercession through their close courtiers, ministers and aristocrats, in order to reach them and in this way, manage to get their job done. Consider the history of mankind. The concept of God which the human mind had evolved was this very same one. And this was that same concept which was prevalent throughout the world at the time of the revelation of the Quran. We have noted above that the concept of Allah which was received through revelation, via Anbiya, was different from this concept. But the revelation from Allah, in different times, which came to different nations, was not present in its original form, and unadulterated, anywhere at the time of the revelation of the Quran. Therefore, the concept of God which these nations, who were claimants of heavenly guidance, had, was similar to that which the human mind had carved. 5.2 The Quranic concept. The Quran arrived, and it refuted in every nook and cranny the concept of God carved by the human mind and in its place, presented the accurate concept of God. This is that very concept of Allah on which the whole structure of deen is erected and through which every aspect of human life is influenced. This is the reason it has declared Iman in Allah as being the first brick in that foundation, and has declared the correctness or wrongness of this concept as being the criterion between kafir, denial, and Iman, acceptance. In other words, if an individual upholds that concept of Allah which the Quran has put forward, the Quran declares him to be a mu'min, the one who has Iman in Allah. Contrary to this, if an individual's concept of God is not the one which the Quran presents, then according to the Quran, he will not be declared a mu'min even if in his own mind he considers himself to be a devout worshipper of God. It is clear from this how much significance the concept of Allah holds in Deen, the Islamic system of life. Now let us see what the Quran says in this respect. According to the Quran, there are 3 spheres of operation of Allah, each one of which has its own unique characteristics. We will first of all discuss the first domain. 5.3 First domain, His will. By observing the system which is working in the universe at this time, this reality will become evidently clear that there is a system of cause and effect working in it, i.e. for any event to appear in the universe there has to be a cause for it. Without a cause no event can take place. If we extend the series of cause and effect backwards, then ultimately a point will be reached where it will have to be accepted that the first link in this chain appeared somehow or other without a cause. This is termed as something coming into existence from non-existence. How did this happen? This matter cannot be comprehended by man. The Quran only tells us this much about it, that Allah has created the heavens and the earth from nothing. 2. 117. i.e. the one who brings all the system of the universe into existence from nothing. It is obvious that for something to begin at the point where cause and effect simply do not exist, the question of any law or process being present there does not even arise. Cause and effect is the very name for law and procedure. The Quran has termed this stage as Al-Amr, the universe of Amr, and has only stated this much about what takes place there. Verily, when he intends a thing, his command is, be, and it is. 36. 82. In this respect, the Amr of Allah works in such a way that when he makes an intention about something and says be, then it happens. It is also obvious that when something is to be brought into existence from nothing, then this will also need to be determined regarding it, as to what it should be, what it is to finally become after traversing through the various stages of life. What will be its characteristics? What will be its traits and effects? This is also clear that when the existence of something takes place according to the Amr, absolute authority, intention, will of Allah, its traits etc., will also be established according to His will. Why did honey receive sweetness and salt saltiness? Through the chemical reaction of a specific proportion of hydrogen and oxygen. Why does a water drop form? Why does water flow downhill? Why is water an elixir of life for us, and why does poison cut down on life? These are those matters which we cannot comprehend. The properties of things are established according to the will and intention of Allah. In these matters the question of why does not arise. This is that aspect, i.e. creating the universe from nothing and establishing properties and their effects, about which it is stated that Allah does whatever He wills. Allah does whatever He wishes as per His intention. 22. 14. Allah does command according to His will. 5. 1. No one has the right to ask Him why He made something as He did, and why He made a certain decision as He did. He cannot be questioned as to why He did this and why He does such and such. 21. 23. Apart from Him, all others can be questioned. This is that sphere of Allah's Amr in which His intention and will operates as an absolute authority and where He is not constrained by any law and procedure. 5.4 Second domain, Laws of nature. Now we come to the second sphere in which the universe is busy in carrying out its functions. We saw, in the first domain, That Allah has established the characteristics and effects of things in the universe using His absolute power, and all this has taken place through His Amr. But, after establishing the characteristics and effects of things in the universe, Allah has modified the state of His Amr. Under the first domain, His Amr was not constrained by any laws, but now the same Amr is encircled by laws. And the command of Allah is a decree determined. 33. 38. The Amr of Allah has become constrained by defined scales. In another verse, it is stated that He has fixed a scale for everything. Verily, for all things has Allah appointed a due proportion. 65. 3. These measures and scales are those things which are called the laws of nature, and which are immutable. For example, the characteristic that was fixed for water is that, under normal conditions, it remains liquid. When it is cooled, on reaching a certain temperature, it changes into a solid ice. And similarly, when heat is provided to it, then on reaching a particular level, it vaporizes. When its chemical analysis is carried out, it splits into hydrogen and oxygen, etc. These laws, scales, for water are so absolute and immutable that there will be no change or modification of any type in them. Wherever man wishes, he can experiment on this and he will find no variation in it. Allah has called these established laws Sunnatullah, habit or practice of Allah, and has stated about these, no change will you find in the practice of Allah. 33. 62. Note that the same Allah who, under the first domain, declared that He does whatever He wishes, and whatever He intends He decides according to it, is now saying that you will not find any change in His practice, habit, law, or sunnat. How big a constraint is this which Allah has imposed on His own absolute authority? Remember, if a man imposes a constraint on himself through his own volition, then there is no aspersion cast on his freedom to choose and intent. When Allah Himself has confined His Amr and will within the scales of laws, by this there is no diminution in His intent and will in any way. Nor, by His declaring that we will not make any change in the constraints we have imposed on our Amr, can we construe Him as being captive and trapped. This is His own decision that the universe should be actively functioning according to defined and established laws, and that there should be no change in them. All this is happening according to His own well-defined program. He has done this so that the universe continues to function with organized discipline and excellent balance. Just think that if it was ever the case that water sometimes extinguishes fire, while another time it bursts into flames itself, fire sometimes boils water, and sometimes freezes it, then the whole system of the universe will be in tatters. From the above discussion, this reality has come to the fore that under this second domain, i.e., external universe, the Amr of Allah works in the form of an immutable law. But since these laws also operate according to the Amr, intention, and will of Allah, the working of these laws is also referred to as His will and Amr. It is apparent from this, that when it is said in this regard that, Allah does so, then this will mean, Allah does so according to His law or the law of Allah does so. For example, in the Quran it is stated, He has made subject to you the night and the day, the sun and the moon, and the stars are in subjection by His command. 16. 12. It is clear that the stellar bodies, moon, sun, stars, are busy in dynamic movements within the natural immutable laws. These laws are so immutable and precise that by the use of very simple mathematics, it can be determined hundreds of years in advance as to when there will be an eclipse of the moon or sun, and at which time a certain planet will be at a certain distance from the earth. These are those immutable laws on the basis of which the enthralling edifice of the science of astronomy is constructed. But for these laws the term Amr is used, which commonly means command. In another place, the term Azn is used for this. 22. 65. which is commonly taken to mean by his leave. Hence, wherever in relation to the working and functioning of the external universe the terms amr, azn, mashiat etc. have been used, these will mean the immutable laws of nature. At this juncture, another point is worthy of attention. In the external universe, there are immutable laws established for all things which is called the Taktir, destiny or purpose of this thing i.e. its characteristics, properties, effects, role, and assignment. This law is unalterable, which means that nothing in the universe has the potential to change its Taktir. It has simply not been given this choice that if it wishes it can obey these laws, or if it wishes it can rebel against them. Or if it wishes it can obey these laws up to a certain extent, and for the remaining part follow some other law. Absolutely not. Everything in the universe is created so that it is obliged to obey this law which has been established for it by the Creator of the universe. And to Allah do obey all that is in the heavens and on earth. 16. 49. From the above discussion it is evident that 1. In the first sphere, through His unconstrained free intention and will, Allah creates things of the universe and establishes laws for them. In this sphere, He does everything according to His will and intent. 2. In the second domain, the laws established by Allah take on an absolute, immutable, and unalterable form. In this category, everything functions according to these established laws. Right from the start, nothing is given the choice to go against or disobey these laws. Man can acquire knowledge of these laws, and according to this, can bring the things of the universe into his use. This is called harnessing of nature, which is the fundamental requirement of being human. The prostration of angels before Adam refers to this fact. 2. 34. It is obvious that in this domain the rule of Allah is not like that of a dictator, but instead becomes the rule of law, though the things of the universe are obliged to follow this law. 5.5 Third domain, the human world. We now come to the third category, i.e. human life. One part of human life is that which is related to the physical laws. In this domain, only one type of laws are applicable to man and animals. But the second part of human life is that which is referred to as the universe of humanity. This is related to human personality. In the same way that Allah has established laws for the nourishment of the physical life of man and animals, He has also established laws for the development of the human self. These laws are received through revelation and are called permanent values. This means that whether it is man's physical life, or the life of his self, even on these Allah's working is through the application of His established laws, knowledge of which has been given to man. Knowledge about physical life is through the use of intellect, reasoning, evidence, and experience, and knowledge about the human self is through revelation. 5.6 Man is responsible for his actions. In the case of man there is another characteristic as well. We have seen that the things of the universe have been created and forced to follow the laws which have been established for them. But man has been given choice in this matter, as to whether he wishes to spend his life according to these laws, or if he wishes he can transgress or rebel against them. Say, the truth is from your sustainer. Let him who will believe, and let him who will reject. It is their choice. 18. 29. Say to them that an established and immutable law of life has been revealed before you from your sustainer. Now from amongst you, whoever wishes can adopt it and whoever wishes can reject it. You will have seen how in these three domains a fundamental difference has been emerging. Under the first domain, the absolute authority of Allah was operative and He was not constrained by any law or procedure. There, the divine mashiat, will of Allah, meant that whatever Allah wished, He did. Under the second domain the divine mashiat imposed restrictions on Himself of His own accord, and these restrictions acquired the form of immutable laws. On the other hand, the things to which these laws are applicable have also not been provided with the freedom to go against these laws. Under the third domain, the divine law remained unchanged, but man was given the freedom to choose whatever path he wishes. 5.7 Man cannot alter the effects. But within man's freedom to choose, there is an aspect of limitation as well. Man certainly has the freedom to choose whether he puts a pellet of poison or of sugar in his mouth, but he does not have the freedom to change the consequences of eating the poison. That divine law of Allah's through which poison has been made to cut life short, will definitely ensure its effect is delivered. Therefore, wherever he told man you can do whatever you wish, alongside this he also stated that Allah's law observes closely what you do. 41. 40. Though the choice of taking an action is in your control, changing its consequence is not in your control. You can neither change it, nor can you save yourself from it. Truly strong is the grip and power of your sustainer. 85. 12. Indeed, the grip of the law of requital of your sustainer is very strict. From the above discussion, it is clear that there are innumerable laws of Allah dispersed throughout the universe. It is man's own choice to follow whichever type of law for himself that he wishes. Allah never interferes in this choice of man. When I am standing at any crossroads in life, Allah's law of requital awaits to see which path I will adopt, and whichever path I set foot on, the law related to that path sets off behind me and begins to yield the effects of my deed. 5.8 The meaning of Taktir. Destiny. In other words, in human life the initiative is in human hands. The Quran states, "Then when they went wrong, Allah let their hearts go wrong." 61. 5. In another verse it is stated, "Through which are deluded away from the truth, such as would be deluded." 51. 9. The law of Allah protects the individual who wishes to remain protected from destruction, and destroys the one who wishes to be destroyed. 2. 284. Whatever a person desires for himself, the law of Allah does that for him. Whatever a person becomes, his destiny, Taktir, becomes the same. When the situation is such, then it is obvious that if we fall into those circumstances which are unfavorable for us, then there is nothing to cry about. We should bring about change within ourselves and make the circumstances favorable, and by doing this, another of Allah's laws will become applicable to us, and our destiny will change. The question is, where can man find these laws and scales? The Quran has stated that these are available through revelation. This is why revelation is. That is the command, Amr, of Allah, which He has sent down to you. 65. 5. In other words, it is the same Amr which was operating as an absolute authority of Allah under the first domain. Then, under the second domain it was implemented as the absolute destiny of different things of the universe, and whose knowledge can be acquired through human intellect, reasoning, and through observation and experiment. Under the third domain, that same Amr is given preserved in the Quran in the form of divine revelation. It is the same Amr which in the first domain is called Mashiat, becomes the destiny of things of the universe under domain 2, and under domain 3 is declared as the divine commandments. 5.9 The Quranic concept of Allah. From the above discussion this truth becomes evident that the concept of Allah given by the Quran is completely different from the concept which the human mind had invented and which different religions had adopted. By ignoring the guidance provided by Allah. According to this concept, Allah forbid, like an absolute despot, dictator, did whatever he wished and man was helpless in front of him. According to the concept of Allah which is presented by the Quran, the law of Allah is operating in the universe, and He never makes any exemption in this law, nor does He make changes or modifications in it. He has established an effect for every deed and has kept its control in His own hands so that the deed assuredly produces the defined effect. That Allah who is running the affairs according to laws, this is the concept bestowed by the Quran. According to this concept, you will see how strictly the nation which has Iman in this type of belief in Allah will be following the laws both in the external universe and within the human world itself. In the external universe, the functioning of these laws is termed as science. From the stage of religion, the voice of the Quran was a unique one which proclaimed that the functioning of the great machinery of the universe is tied down in precise laws. In this way, it invited the attention of the world towards scientific research. The religion given by the Quran is al-Din, which does not falsify science, instead places great emphasis on it. This is the clear evidence of its truth. As far as the falsifying of religion by science is concerned, so far scientific research has verified whatever the Quran has stated about the universe, and has not refuted it. Only that religion can meet this criterion, in which the concept of Allah is one which is to govern according to the law, and this concept cannot be found anywhere apart from the Quran. This, then, is the concept of the working of the law in the universe. As far as the human world is concerned, the degree to which the nation which has Iman in such a deity whose every decision is according to law, will have respect for the law, and obedience of justice and righteousness, does not require further elaboration. This is the practical outcome of the concept of Allah which the Quran presents, i.e., scientific research and material progress in the external universe, and in the human world, respect for law and the prevalence of justice and righteousness. Al-Din is the name of such a system of life which is based on this concept of Allah.